All right. Well, good morning and welcome to our conversation. I am so excited today to have a very good special friend and a mentor to join our conversation, building Black wealth and the importance of supporting minority-owned businesses. For me, John Rodgers is more than just a businessman, a financial wealth expert, a guru, but he's my big brother and mentor. And many of you know him also as the founder and the chairman and co-CEO of Ariel Investments in Chicago. And this is a true honor to have him here. So we plan to have a dialogue about Black wealth and really have an honest discussion. But just want to say, John, welcome.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. And thank you so much for taking time out your schedule to be here. And for those who are watching, and we all know John Rodgers, but for those who are watching, just to go down memory lane, John's passion for investing began at the age of 12 when he began getting stocks from his father at Christmas and birthday gifts. John, in 1983, founded Ariel at the age of 24 to focus on patient value investing within small and medium-sized companies. And while Ariel's research capabilities have expanded across the globe, patience is still the disciplined approach that drives the firm today. His accomplishments extend more than the boardroom, where he's also a member of several corporate boards, including Nike, the New York Times Company, and Ryan Specialty. He serves on the board of trustees at the University of Chicago and the Obama Foundation. In 2008, John was awarded Princeton University's highest honor, the Woodrow Wilson Award. He's also the co-chair of President Obama's inaugural committee in 2009, and he's an avid basketball player, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later on. But John is great. Do you remember how we met?
I don't know exactly how we met. I know it was during the Obama years.
It was during the Obama years. I was just transferred over to finance and became the finance director for African American Affairs. Penny Pritzker and Juliana, during the NFC meeting, announced me and said, I'll be joining. You were literally standing next to me and turned to me and said, hi, I'm John Rodgers. He said, do you have a second? And I was like, absolutely. I have more than a second. And then we went to your office and the rest is history. But it was amazing because you were someone who was very accessible. And we worked with you and the likes of Desiree Rodgers, Melody Hobson, of course, Marva, Jerry DeVard, all these great people just like you. And we raised money and we did a lot of things that a lot of people had not seen before. And so, but it was you who led the helm at all of this. First question, I'm going to dive right into it, right? 1983, you started Ariel. It was a different time back then, right? My question is, how and why did you start Ariel Investments? You had a great job on Wall Street. So what made you stop?
Well, I was working at William Blair and Company, which is the largest regional investment bank based in Chicago. And I had been the first African-American professional to work there when I started in 1980. And the idea to start Ariel really came from three things. Number one is I had an investment strategy and philosophy around small cap value investing that I was excited about. And I was convinced would outperform the stock market.
Wow.
And we would get great returns following smaller companies that were less well researched and to buy them while they were out of favor at cheap valuations and bargain prices. So that was the focus that I was convinced would really make money for our customers. And the second thing was we had a chance to make history. We were going to be the first African-American owned money management firm in the country's history. There had never been a money manager or mutual fund of African-American descent. And so the chance to make history was really important. And then finally, there were role models in Chicago of African-American entrepreneurs who had done extremely well. Yep. John Johnson had created Ebony and Jet magazine.
Absolutely.
George Johnson had created Afro Sheen and Ultra Sheen. Yep. As a part of Johnson Products. They were these giants. They were these role models who had built major business of scale, employing hundreds, if not thousands of people, giving back to our community, being involved in our political leadership in Chicago. So those are the three reasons that I was inspired to start Ariel in 1983.
That's awesome, man. And the people that you named are great role models. I know you actually use a lot of their philosophy as well, too. But one of your philosophies, which I think is very important, is slow and steady wins the race. How did you come up with that motto philosophy for Ariel?
Well, the idea of focusing on slow and steady wins the race and being a patient investor started out because, I was 24 when I started the company, and I wanted to be able to convince our customers and our prospects that I was going to be a prudent investor with their money. I wasn't going to take undue risks with their money. So the idea was, if they had this idea, that I was going to take their money and be patient before I put it to work. Take my time doing the research on the companies we invested in, and once we found a good company to invest in, we would own it for the long term. And the other nice thing about being a patient investor, it sort of lent itself to our first logo. And I wanted to have a logo.
Right.
I wanted to have something that was memorable. And so the idea is, I thought about that old Aesop's fable, slow and steady wins the race, the tortoise beats the hare.
Absolutely.
And so I said, geez, I can have a logo of a really kind of memorable turtle that will distinguish us from all the other competitors.
Yeah.
Dreyfus had a lion, T. Rowe Price had a ram. Many people always have these ferocious animals. Our turtle would be memorable.
It is very memorable. Obviously, I've been honored and blessed to come to the office and blessed to stay at the house. And many times, what people don't know either is like, you were gracious enough on the campaign to let me stay there and still stay there when I come by and visit in Chicago. But you see that symbol all over, right? Which is very powerful and very meaningful. So slow and steady definitely wins the race. Now, along the way, you met so many different people that have come over from Ariel. But there's one person in particular, I believe, was an intern or maybe a young student at the time by the name of Melody Hobson, who obviously has now become the Melody, and I love Melody. Shout out to Melody, love her, my other big sister. What did you see in Melody at that time?
Well, I first met Melody when she was a 17-year-old prospective Princeton student. And I was in charge of helping to recruit students to Princeton in the Chicago area, making sure they all got interviewed by alumni before they were either accepted or not accepted to Princeton. And I put on special events to not only reach all the prospective students in Chicago, but I had a special committee to focus on African-American students. And Melody came to all the events I organized, and she had all this charisma. You could see that she was very comfortable talking to folks that were much older than she was. She had just a sense of, she was on top of her game.
Yes,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
You could tell how smart she was. You could tell she had these leadership skills.
Yeah.
So I know I was convinced she was going to be good because I had a dinner in April for all the admitted students to Princeton that spring. And I put her at the head table.
Wow.
Along with our key basketball recruit.
Wow.
And the basketball recruit, Kit Miller, became the number 2 scorer in Princeton basketball history. So he was a big catch.
Yeah.
And then Melody became Melody. And she said that when she came to that dinner that night, she was going to go to Harvard. But she sat next to an alumnus who helped neutralize her, told her the Princeton story, and helped convince her. So to your question, I could tell she was really special back then.
Yeah.
And being at that table changed her life's trajectory.
Absolutely.
And our company's trajectory.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And I echo that. Melody is also a mentor as well, too. And she's very accessible, right? And she's always knowledgeable and willing to drop gems, regardless of knowledge in terms of how to advance and how to do the right thing. So those are qualities like yourself that a lot of people don't have, right? When you reach a certain status, you forget that, but you guys have that. And I thank you personally for that. One of the things you mentioned the last few years ago at the house, I said, why are you so nice? And I don't know if you remember the response, but you said, John Johnson. You brought him up and you watched him, and he was a nice person, right? And you said, I just want to treat everybody equally, And that's like a trait that a lot of people in your stature just don't have. You want to talk a little bit about treating people fairly and, why it's important to when you meet the right people, why it's important to treat everybody on the same playing field?
Well, I would think it's a couple of things. You mentioned John Johnson, and that is an important story. I went to visit Harvard Business School for their Black Alumni Weekend. I didn't go to Harvard, but I was asked to be there as a speaker. And John Johnson was the luncheon speaker. And he talked about the fact that if you were a young entrepreneur or a young business leader, you didn't have to tell people how well you were doing. You should always sort of be low key, be a good listener, not be out bragging about your successes. He said, if you're really good, people are going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And he told the stories about how he started out as a young entrepreneur and people would neglect him and disrespect him. But once Ebony and Jet started to take off, he said how people started coming to him and knocking on his door, wanting to lend him money, wanting to be a vendor for him, and just making that case. And if you think about it, if you're Michael Jordan, you don't have to tell people you're a great basketball player.
Right.
People kind of figure it out. The second lesson I learned early on was that my father, he grew up in a very humble beginnings. His father was a barber in Knoxville, Tennessee. By the time he was 12, he had lost both his parents. So he moved to Chicago to live with a kindly uncle. And my dad always said, you're no better than anyone else. You treat everyone exactly the same.
Right.
And it was something that he instilled in me from the very beginning and felt that was critically important. So I really give him a lot of credit for creating that sense of, you're never, ever more important than someone else.
Absolutely. And your father, the judge, and your mom, right, the honorable, you come from good stock, man. And beyond Chicago, you have roots to Tulsa that a lot of people don't know about. We want to share in terms of, because your history is very important, but as it relates to Tulsa and the riots and the business acumen from way back then has now extended to now. So you wanted to kind of share about your background and your family's background in Tulsa as well?
Sure. Well, my great-grandfather was J.B. Stratford, and he owned the Stratford Hotel in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it was arguably the largest black-owned hotel in the country, and he was one of the wealthiest African Americans in the country. He also owned lots of land in Tulsa, and was really a civic leader of our community in Tulsa at the time. So he not only was he wealthy, but he was a fighter for civil rights and economic justice in Tulsa. And then we had the Tulsa Massacre, and over 100 years ago, as almost everyone knows now, of course. The Tulsa just had this huge, attack from the white leadership at the time. People came over. There was arguably bombs dropped from the sky. Many people were killed, and all the valuable properties were completely destroyed. Burned down during the Tulsa Race Massacre. People were arrested. People were, rounded up, and so my great-grandfather lost everything. And fortunately, he was able to sneak out of the detention center, get in the back of a car, hide away, and get away from Tulsa, because he was one of 3 people that were indicted as helping to create the riot, create the massacre.
Wow.
Totally unfair, but because he'd been a leader in the community, they wanted him in jail. They wanted him in prison. So after he escaped, he went to Independence, Kansas. He met up with his son, C.F. Stratford, who was a lawyer. My grandfather, C.F. Stratford, used his legal skills to stop Tulsa from extraditing my great-grandfather back to Tulsa. So he came to Chicago with his son, tried to recreate the success he had in Tulsa. He could never do it. So we lost the opportunity to build multi-generational wealth because of that attack.
Got it.
Now, the final thing, you mentioned my mom. She went to law school at the University of Chicago. She was inspired to be a lawyer because she saw her father use his legal skills and arguably to save her grandfather's life. Because the sense was if he went back to Tulsa, he would probably be lynched at that time. And so my mom ended up being the first African-American woman to graduate from the University of Chicago Law School in 1946.
Wow. Yeah, Miss Jewel Babaton. Absolutely. And she's amazing within her own right. And there are many young women who I know in the legal field have referenced her in terms of what she's done, and look to her as a role model and use her. In fact, a couple of people I think have reached out to you about doing a documentary on her. Right?
That would be a great idea.
Yeah.
We've been learning a lot more about my mom's career just recently, because there was a book out about Richard Nixon's wife, Pat. And the writer, who did an extraordinary job, got all the tapes from that period of time. And my mom's name came up many times within the Nixon Oval Office. And a friend of mine actually found a tape where my mom had a meeting with President Nixon, where he is asking her to accept the job as Deputy Solicitor General of the United States, be the first woman Deputy Solicitor General. And that would be a direct pathway to being the first woman Supreme Court Justice.
Oh my gosh!
And he says that in the meeting.
Wow!
And so she took the job as Deputy Solicitor General, moved to Washington, and of course never, got that appointment. He went a different direction at first, and of course didn't finish out his entire term. But the fact that she was an extraordinary pioneering lawyer. First black woman assistant U.S. attorney in the United States, and many, many, many other firsts.
Absolutely. And the year had to be between 1968, 69, early 70s. And so someone of that stature, and during that time, especially as an African American woman, to be considered like, that's a great honor. So that means she was a bad mama jump. Great honor. And clearly, the business acumen is in your blood, right? So you get it. And you're a huge advocate. And when I ran the small business office within the Obama administration at the Department of Transportation, every time I threw a program, every time I needed advice, you were always there. And so you were helping to lead the charge. What advice would you give a small business owner, minority-owned business owner right now, in spite of, all that they go through, to keep pushing?
Well, it's a very, very difficult time to be a small black-owned business.
Yeah.
There's so many doors that were starting to open for us are shutting down just as quickly. And so my advice to, African-American entrepreneurs is a couple of things. Of course, number one, you've got to continue to make sure that your products and services are distinguished from your competitors.
Right.
That you've got the best of the best. That's really critically important. Can't overestimate how important that is to have the best products, be able to compete with your competitors. And the second thing is we have to be able to support each other.
Yes.
If everyone supports each other, we can all grow together. So at our Black Directors Conference just a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed George Johnson. He's my hero, role model. He's 98 years old. And Johnson Products, again, was the largest black-owned company in the country at one point. First black-owned company that went public. But what George Johnson did was he used black law firms like my mom's to be his lawyer. He worked with Burrell Advertising to be his advertising agency. He started the first black-owned bank in the country, the largest black-owned bank in the country, Independence Bank. He helped Don Cornelius go national with Soul Train. He did so many incredible things, but working with other black businesses, black accountants, black consultants. And if we all do that together, then we'll all grow together.
Absolutely.
Now, he prepaid 3 years of advertising in Essence magazine. Essence might not have made it to the next level,
right,
if George Johnson wasn't advertising.
That's right.
And in Essence.
That's right.
Of course, he was advertising in Black Enterprise right. And advertising in Ebony and Jet. So we need to make sure we're all looking out for each other, and that'll lead to a successful path.
Incredible. I remember as a youngster watching, come and join us, brother. Watching Soul Train and watching the commercials, you'd always see Johnson products. It's amazing. And having the opportunity to meet Mr. Johnson was like, whoa, the same thing like you. The same thing with Linda, Johnson Publishing, all the above. But they've always been in the community. Joining us for the conversation is Dr. Belinda Coleman, CEO of the Coleman Group and small women-owned business. And so, we've been sharing in this conversation about some of the struggles and some of the highs and lows. Can you relate?
I definitely can relate. First, I want to say it's an honor to be sitting across from John Rodgers, a pioneer in Black wealth, and thank you for all that you've done for small businesses and advocacy and financial literacy. As a small business owner, I learned from you, I listened to you, I watch you and Melanie a lot. So thank you so much. Thank you. To what John was just talking about, partnering, creating partnerships. First of all, reinventing yourself and making sure you stay relevant and you have services and that you make sure that you are distinguishable from your competitors. What makes you different? Right. And I can definitely relate to that. As a small business, we've had to pivot from starting out as just a consulting firm. We've pivoted into data analytics and data science. So now we package data, we create data for solutions, as everything from health solutions for the federal government, COVID-19. We did a package data and did a set up an application for that worked across the world, and we're currently doing that. But we're consistently pivoting and reinventing ourselves and working with other small businesses to go after larger contracts with larger work instead of doing the 10, 20 million, we're looking for either the larger ones. And we found that when we work together, we can do more together because it's enough pie for all of us to have a slice.
Wow. Thank you. And I want to say thank you. You guys don't remember this. You guys were both on my panel during the Obama administration when I hosted those small business days. And so you guys, I want to say thank you. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Coleman. And congratulations on getting your PhD. Spelman grad, HBCU. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so listen, I am going to, John, change going from so serious to kind of like, some fun times, right? Again, living with you, I learned a lot. And we had some good times. It was fun. And I know you like basketball, and I've seen a couple of tapes. And in the tape, playing basketball, you played against Michael Jordan, did you?
I did get a chance to play against Michael.
The Michael Jordan,
Yes.
right? The Michael, and did you won, right? It was a contest. And
Well, thanks for bringing that up. It comes up almost every day. It's kind of a fun adventure. But I used to go to the Michael Jordan fantasy camp in Las Vegas. It was called the Senior Flight School, and it was for campers 35 years old or greater. And it was a really cool thing. You'd be on a team again. You would be picked on a team by a coach. It'd be a famous coach, typically like Mike Krzyzewski could be your coach, or top NBA coaches, all-time Hall of Fame greats could be your coach.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful thing. One year, Coach K was my coach for 3 days.
wow.
So it was a fun camp to be at. NBA referees, it was all first class. And typically every year at the camp, Michael would challenge any camper to a short game of one-on-one. First to 3 baskets wins. And the first 7 years of the camp, no one ever won. So he would, he'd let people score a basket or two, then he would clamp down and he would always, achieve a victory. I got very fortunate. I think the day I played him, the last year I went to the camp, 7 years in for the camp, he'd played about 15 campers by the time he got to me. So I think he was tired.
Okay, but a win is still a win, right?
It was still a win.
a win is still a win.
I played basketball at Princeton,
Yeah.
and my coach, Pete Carrill, who's in the Hall of Fame, always said I was a good one-on-one player.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's a 5-on-5 game, and he always said I was legally blind and I couldn't see anything on the court. I was a bad passer, but one-on-one, you don't have to pass the ball to anybody.
Yeah.
So I had some trick shots
Yeah.
that worked.
Man,
And, and Michael almost blocks the last shot, just barely misses it. He says, "Oh no!" So the cool thing is, if you Google John Rodgers, Michael Jordan,
Yes.
pops right up.
Yes. Yeah.
4-minute video.
Make sure you guys Google it. Google it. Yeah. But I saw the tape. So my man. My man. I talked a little bit about doing finance for President Obama, Mrs. Obama early on. And, one of the very first events, thanks to, was at Miss Winfrey's house, Oprah. Shout out to Miss Winfrey. And she did a huge fundraiser for us. You raised countless of money, but you also have a close relationship with President Obama and Mrs. Obama to a point where I believe they spent time with some of your locations. We want to talk about your role in the campaign, and also what was it like to host the president and the first lady at some of your locations. You don't have to go into full detail, right? And I apologize. I try to get you, but share what you can share.
Yeah, well, I got to know Michelle well early on because when I was a junior at Princeton, my coach asked me to host a young man who was being recruited to Princeton to play basketball. And so Craig Robinson stayed with me on his recruiting visit to Princeton. So the next year when I was senior and captain of the team, Craig was a freshman on the team. And Craig ended up being a great player. He ended up being the 4th leading scorer in Princeton's history. He ended up getting drafted by the 76ers.
Yes.
Of course, his sister Michelle followed him to Princeton.
Yes.
So Michelle was always just like Craig's little sister.
Right.
Craig was the star of the family.
Wow.
And then Brock was just, Craig's little sister's boyfriend.
Right.
It was like no big deal. We would play ball together. You'd hang out together, and you never dreamed. But because I've been involved politically early on, and I've been Carol Moseley Braun's finance chairman when she became the first Black woman senator, it was natural for Brock, as he started to think about his political career, to come and talk with me about how to raise money in Chicago, who you could count on and who you couldn't. And so we built, a friendship. We worked together. I had supported all of his campaigns. I was in his first fundraiser he had at the Hyde Park Hilton when he was running for the state Senate, way before he ran for Congress and, of course, the U.S. Senate. And so I was just blessed to be there early. And I think the historical moment you're referencing is after he stunned the world and won the presidency and had the big celebration in Grant Park.
Yes.
The next 3 days, Ariel Investments was the temporary transition headquarters. So for 3 days, the president was there with Vice President Biden, Valerie Jarrett, David Axelrod, everybody to help start to form the government.
Right.
The federal building wasn't ready for them yet.
Right.
And for him to pick a small black business
Yes.
to come in and then sort of put us on the map is
Yes.
something I'll never forget. And it was a privilege to have him in our offices. And then I got a chance to co-chair the inauguration, and that was a special experience to be one of the co-chairs of the first black president in history, and we'll never forget that day.
You made significant history, absolutely. And again, I thank you because you in addition to helping them, you helped me get my appointment in the administration. And I won't bring it up, but you were very helpful. So I want to say thank you publicly, and thank you again for your support. All right, a fun question. If you can have dinner with 3 people, either dead or alive, right? 3 people, who would you choose?
Well, that's a really a tough one. 3 people.
Yeah, 3, man. You can't have a big buffet, like 3.
Well, I've been a big fighter for economic justice, and I would love to, of course, like many people, would love to be able to sit and talk with Dr. King and to talk about how he moved from sort of social justice focus to the economic justice focus, and to really talk about what inspired him to provide the kind of leadership that he brought for all of us, and the way that he was a leader of all of us. I couldn't, imagine how important an experience like that would be. The second thing I think, is I love people who are really truly independent thinkers, who are not like everyone else, who have imaginative and care deeply about peace in the world. So the late John Lennon would be someone that I would love to sit down with, and I think he would be such an extraordinary role model. Yeah. And now as I get older, I guess I was going to say, my parents, I appreciate them more every day, how tough it was for them to try to start their own law firms in the 1940s. My dad was a Tuskegee Airman, the racism and sexism that they faced. So to be able to sit and talk with them about those challenges and what that was like, and how they came up with the ideas of how to bring me along as an only child.
Awesome. Yeah.
That would be my third.
Excellent choices, my man. Excellent choices. As we begin to wrap up the conversation, what would you say is in terms of more words of wisdom to a business owner, or just, to a business owner? Any other words of wisdom would you say?
The only thing I would add that I didn't talk about earlier, I think to be successful, you want to surround yourself with really smart people. So you're kind to talk about Melody being at our firm now for 34 years. She became the first black woman chairman of a Fortune 500 company, non-executive chairman of Starbucks, non-executive chairman of DreamWorks Animation, just phenomenally successful. Her network has made our firm so strong. She can touch base with so many people.
Yes, she can.
She's on the board of JP Morgan Chase now.
Yes.
She's just a leader in so many different areas for women and people of color, financial literacy. So having strong teammates, having dynamos around you is, I think, really important for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Sometimes people are afraid to go out and stretch and hire more people. They want to save on cost. But there's no substitute for having really strong, dynamic teammates. They'll make you better and they'll bring you along.
Yes.
Along with that, putting together a great board of directors.
Yes.
So like at Ariel Mutual Funds, being one of the few black-owned mutual fund complexes in the country, we've got board members like former Attorney General Eric Holder.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. He knows all about governance. He knows everything about the kind of values that we have to be able to have a great mutual fund board. But we have a woman named Kim Liu, who is one of the most unique business and economic and finance leaders in the country. She's the chief investment officer of Columbia University's endowment.
Wow.
In the history of the country, there's probably less than 5 black women who ever led an endowment of that scale.
Yes.
And so she's a unicorn. And then finally, on our company board, we have leaders like Arnie Duncan and Valerie Jarrett, and terrific professors from Yale like Heather Tooks and Martin Kramer's at Notre Dame. putting together really great people like that, diverse board members who can make you stronger, make you better.
Yes.
We all go through tough times.
Yes.
And that's so helpful to have that talent around you.
So I want to say thank you for that too, because thanks to you and Melody, I began the corporate board process. So in the middle of it, absolutely. But you helped to prepare by telling me, well, one, helping me with my board resume, and also referring me to said program to go through it. It was a different time when you guys started joining boards, but the process has changed. So when you guys say move, I move. And so now I'm moving, so things are happening. So listen, I as we begin to wrap up, just want to say thank you again for your support, and just being my big brother and always just being there. Like, it means a lot. And so but you're my guy. You know it, man. You're my guy, and thank you for being you.
Okay, well, thank you for your leadership too. You're the next generation. You'll be, I know, making a difference for all of us and fighting for all of us. So thank you for your leadership.
My man, thank you. And thank all of you for joining us. All right.